Wellness for Life is brought to you by Purim Physical Therapy, Gothenburg Chiropractic Clinic, Mojave Ottawa Community Action Partnership, CHI St. Joseph's Health Weight Management Center, and Natural Alternatives.
Hello, I'm Matt Koffenberg, physical therapist and owner of Purim Physical Therapy. Today we're going to continue our discussion of treating your own back. In the first episode, we talked about determining whether or not you qualify for this program that we're talking about in order for you to treat your own back. So in that episode, we talked about answering a series of questions. They were just simple yes-no questions to determine if you have what's called mechanical pain. And this program that we're talking about over the course of these 3 or 4 episodes is all about mechanical pain. It's all about pain from the moving parts of the body. So in episode 1, we discussed answering these questions. And if you answered yes to the majority of those questions, you likely have mechanical pain and you likely will succeed with this program. In episode 2, we talked about dispelling myths associated with low back pain. And I do encourage you to go back and look at those episodes. You can do that easily at lakestv3.com and just search for treating your own back. Today we're going to talk about, in essence, kind of diagnosing your back pain. With that episode 1, we determined that it was mechanical pain, but now today we're going to talk about what type of mechanical pain you have. There really are 3 different types of mechanical pain. One of them is called the Postural Syndrome, one of them is called the Derangement Syndrome, and the third type of mechanical pain is called the Dysfunction Syndrome. The easiest way to determine whether or not you have postural derangement or dysfunction is to use an example of really just looking at your finger. And so I'm going to show that to you today. And we'll just look at the index finger. If I take my index finger and I pull it back, I'll pull it back as far as I can. I start feeling a little bit of stress and I'm just going to let go immediately. That stress told me that I'm kind of at my end range. Now, in the first type of mechanical pain, we called it the postural syndrome. So if I take my finger and I pull it back to that point where it won't go anymore, I feel some stress and I just hold it there. And I tell you to hold it there for 5 hours. Eventually your finger is really going to get sore. And the reason for that is because all of the soft tissue on the front part of that finger are really getting overstressed for too long a period of time. So all this tissue through here is getting overstressed. And we get pain, and we call that the postural syndrome. The same, if we look at the back with that, so if you look at me from the side, our back has some natural curves, and in the low back, we have what's called lordosis, which is in essence an inward curve of the spine. That's our natural curve of the spine. Now, if we sit for too long, we often will reverse that. So we'll reverse that lordosis. We'll take that spine that should normally be curved, and when we sit for a long time, we're reversing that lordosis, and now we're putting a lot of stress on the back part of our back. And if we've got a job where we're sitting 8 hours a day and all that soft tissue on the back part of our back is being stressed all day long, it can become quite painful. And we call that the postural syndrome. The second type of mechanical pain is called the derangement syndrome. So we'll go back to the finger. With the derangement syndrome, I'm going to pull my finger back until I feel stress. Now in a derangement syndrome, what happens is I would take this finger and I would yank it down beyond the point with which it can actually move. Now if I were to do that, I would actually tear the tissue in front of my finger. That tissue, the soft tissue, the ligaments, the muscles, the tendon, that tissue would tear. That is called a derangement. So if we look at our back, when it comes to the back, the moving parts of the back are our disc, our ligaments, our muscles. If I were to go beyond the point with which my back can move, I'll tear that tissue and I'll end up with a derangement. If you think of the anatomy of the spine has bones called vertebrae that are stacking right on top of one another. In between those bones, we have this fluid-filled structure called the disc. The disc actually has some retaining walls around it. Those retaining walls are the ligaments. They actually hold that disc material in place. If I were to suffer a derangement syndrome and stress my back beyond the point with which that tissue can tolerate it, those ligaments can tear and the disc material can kind of start coming out of where it should be. It's no longer retained, and that can create pain. The third mechanical pain is the dysfunction syndrome. So let's go back to my finger. Let's say I did derange it. So I pulled it back and I tore that tissue. Now that tissue will heal, but we need to let it heal. So what would we do? We would probably immobilize the finger, allow that tissue to heal. As it's healing, it develops scar tissue. Scar tissue, the only thing scar tissue knows how to do in life is shrink. It grabs a hold of everything around it and it shrinks. So I've torn this tissue, it's now developed some scar tissue which is shrinking. So now if I were to go back to my finger and pull it back, it no longer goes back that far. It only goes back that far before I feel stress. That's the dysfunction syndrome. It's basically scar tissue. So how do you at home determine what type of pain you have? It's postural pain if you get pain, if you've been in a position for a long time, you start experiencing pain, you get out of the position, pain goes away. That's postural pain. Derangement syndrome. If you find a movement that hurts, so let's say I bend forward and that hurts. I come back up. I do it again. It hurts again. I do it again. It hurts more and more and more. So if you find a movement that hurts, the more you do that movement, it hurts more. That would be considered a derangement. Something's been torn. If you have dysfunction, a certain movement hurts, but the more you do that movement, it actually lessens the pain. That would be considered a dysfunction syndrome. Once we know what type of syndrome we have, we can easily treat it. And that's what we'll talk about at our next episode. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to call me at 218-346-2464.
Thank you for watching Wellness for Life. Brought to you by Purim Physical Therapy, Gothenburg Chiropractic Clinic, Mojave Ottawa Community Action Partnership, CHI St. Joseph's Health Weight Management Center, and Natural Alternatives.